Spying in the shower. A close friend of mine told me this story of when she was in the Navy. Her and her girlfriend had met this guy who was in their unit, or whatever you call it. They started hanging out with him after work and going to bars to drink. He seemed like a nice guy, and I even met him myself a few times and never thought anything was weird about him at all. We all thought he was cool enough, and eventually he moved in with my friend and her girlfriend. He always paid the rent on the time and was clean as hell for a dude. About a year goes by and everything is cool. Then one day, I go hang out with my friend and her girlfriend, and this guy had moved out. Then they told me this creepy ass story. The first thing they noticed that was weird was that one of the girls' underwear had gone missing. Apparently, it was one of their favorite pairs and they looked everywhere for it but could not find it, so they wrote it off and didn't think anything of it. Then one day, the other girl came in and noticed that in the nightstand, where they keep their fun things, some things had been moved around. There were a lot more subtle and weird things that happened, but the worst happened one day when one of the girls was taking a shower. So she gets done with her shower and opens the curtain. She looks under at the bottom of the door because something caught her eye. It was a tiny little mirror, taped to a pole, that he had under the door. When he noticed she looked down, he quickly pulled the mirror out and abruptly left the apartment. When he came back a few hours later, both of the girls confronted him about all the creepy shit. So, stealing underwear, messing with people's personal belongings, that was weird. But the weirdest thing, he confessed, was the length that he went to spy on them in the shower. So not only did he take a mirror and tape it to a pole so he could look under the door, there wasn't enough room between the door and the carpet, so on his day off, while they were both at work, he took the bathroom door off of the hinges, sawed off the bottom about an inch or two, then sanded it down. He also repainted it so it would not look suspicious. Also, he could fit a mirror under the door and spy on these girls taking a shower. Long story short, they kicked his ass out, reported him to the naval officer, and got a restraining order. And I have to say, if any of you met him, you just think he's a regular dude. Who the fuck steals panties and cigarette butts? Longtime reader, first time poster. When I was about 22 years old, I lived alone in a local apartment complex. It was a 2-bedroom, but I was between subletting the second room. I used to sit on my second floor porch and smoke cigarettes, sometimes until the early hours in the morning. One night, I heard shuffling outside the window to my bedroom, which overlooks the aforementioned porch. But I chalked it up to being the stray cat I fed on a fairly regular basis, and went back to sleep. The next morning, I found that my ashtray, which was perched on the outer lip of my windowsill, had been emptied in the middle of the night. Of course, I found this happening bizarre, but I was late for class, so I didn't have a lot of time to properly investigate, though I was certain they were gone. I figured perhaps one of my friends had emptied it before leaving that night, and I had been too drunk to take notice. That was until it happened again 2 nights later, and then with increasing frequency after that. Always between the hours of 12 and 5 a.m., I worked a bakery job and had to be in for 5:30. I was incredibly creeped out, but I hadn't seen anyone per se, so I went about my life and checked my window lock every night. One fall night, I walked down the shadowy path to the on-site laundromat to wash my things for work the next morning. I felt a distinct twinge of being watched, but again, no one was in sight. When I returned for my clothes, I found that someone had stolen all of my bras and panties from the wash, not even the dryer, which of course pissed me off and creeped me the fuck out. The responding officer had a good giggle, stating that he would let me know if he found any 18-year-olds rolling around town with bras on their heads, but still something felt off, just a nagging suspicion that something more nefarious was at play. About a month after my clothes went missing, I went to the gym and noticed this man with teardrop tattoos watching my ass on the elliptical. He wasn't even pretending to work out, he was literally sitting in a chair in the empty gym, staring at me. All the bells and whistles were going off in my head, so I quickly left the apartment gym and ran home like fucking bolted. That night, I heard someone fidget with my window. which I thankfully bought extra window locks for. I immediately turned all my lights on and heard my ceramic ashtray fall to the ground. From then on out, the apartment complex had cops drive by my place at night, and my cigarette butts and remaining underwear have been safe since. So, creepy stalker motherfucker, let's not meet. Where did all the panties go? This happened when I was 14 to 15 years old. My school has an option. If it's too far for you to travel to school, you can always opt to stay in the hostel. You pay a certain amount monthly, and on alternate weekends, they'll let you off to see your parents or go to town to hang out or get some personal supplies. So this is an all-girls school. At the hostel, we experienced change of guard a lot of times after a previous guard passed away. The late guard was a nice chap and acted more like a grandfather to us. He's in his late 50s to early 60s, bringing us food from his wife and candies. Till one day a man in his 30s took the guard post, after quite some times the hostel being without one. The new guard was a bit off. There are times when he would walk past our study room and stand by the window staring at us. Other times he'd stay outside the gate, near the shower room smoking ciggies. It creeped us out a little bit, but we didn't really do much, as the wardens were all very wary that we won't be able to get a new guard if they fire him. So he stays. Whenever he's around and we get uncomfortable, we'll just close the door to the room we are in, so he could not peer inside. Fast forward to a few months after, our panties started going missing. We have this place right behind our hostel block that were allocated for us to hang our laundry and air it dry after we did them. Some girls will soak their clothes in softener for a night and leave the clothes, including panties, in a pail in the laundry room. The next day when we wake up, all our panties will be missing. It went on for a few weeks, and we started getting anxious about the missing panties. It comes to a point where few girls were left with only a few panties with them, that they give their parents an emergency call to buy them more and send it to the hostel. Our wardens were getting anxious too. We alerted the school and local enforcement, but not much is being done. We were mostly left on our own. One weekend, 2 girls went behind the guardhouse to get some cleaning stuff. We clean up part of the hostel every alternate weekends when we don't have our outings, and noticed a large garbage bag. They left it untouched at first, but when they returned to put the brooms back and mops that they used back, one girl got curious to what's inside the bag and decided to take a look. Inside, there were heaps of our missing panties. Both girls freaked out when they see the young guard coming towards them, yelling some profanities and asked them not to touch the bag. Both ran towards the main hostel building, straight to our warden's room. Our wardens were both alarmed and called the police right away. Then, armed with a few of burly girls, who's also our school's hockey players, with their hockey sticks in tow, went to look for him. The guard managed to get away on his motorcycle. A few days later, the police caught him snooping around our hostel when it was almost lights off. Turned out he had been a repeated sex offender. Caught a few times being a flasher around the schools in the city. We were all relieved to have him locked away in jail, but also upset that our school had been careless in hiring that guard for our hostel. Our parents demanded for PTA emergency meeting and decided that the next one they hire has to go through PTA approval first. It was scary to imagine that this guy has the keys to almost all rooms in the hostel, except for the dorms, where a dorm leader is given the keys to lock the door after lights out from inside. But imagine what nasty things he would do if the 2 girls didn't discover the missing panties. After all, this man had been entrusted to guard us from harm, but he turned out to be the danger lurking around. I still have shivers down my spine when I think of him. So, perverted hostel guard, let's not meet again. Nightly visits from a Peeping Tom. This is my first time posting in a sub like Reddit Let's Not Meet. so forgive me if the style isn't as similar to the other stories here. This is a very real situation that is currently happening to me, and I'd really appreciate some advice, aside from the obvious calling the police, about how to feel safe in my own home. A bit of background information: I'm a university student in the southwest of England. I currently live in a house share with 3 other girls, only 2 of whom are here at the moment, in a somewhat dodgy area. My bedroom is the only one on the ground floor, with a back door that leads onto a small and discreet patio in the garden. It's a semi-detached, so there's houses on either sides, and there's a lane behind the gardens with no street lighting. Recently, we've had bad weather in the area, so the dividing fence on one side has fallen down, as well as some of the fencing to the lane beyond to the other houses. The first time it happened was at the end of December. My housemates were all still at their parents' for the holidays, but I'd come back early to revise for an exam which I had in January, so I was there alone. I always keep the back door in my bedroom locked, and I have blinds that cover the full length of the door and window, with a gap probably around 3 inches in the middle. I was sitting on my bed with my laptop, and since I had the lights on, I couldn't clearly see outside as it was dark. However, I kept thinking I could see something in my peripheral vision through the gap in the blinds. I wouldn't have been able to see anything outside unless it was close to the window. I looked up a few times and thought I saw something pale move away in the lower right-hand corner of the window in the door, which would have been directly by the gap. I figured I was probably just being paranoid and ignored it. Later on, I went upstairs and noticed through the hallway window that the people we share a lack of fence with were having people over. My bedroom is on the opposite side of the house, so my patio and my window wouldn't have been visible to them unless they have come into the garden and walked over. Around 2 a.m., I hear what sound like all their guests leaving, and figured that maybe someone had drunkenly wandered over earlier on. At this point, I had all my lights off and was sitting in my bed with my laptop, and heard what sounded like someone shuffling around outside. I immediately closed my laptop, so my room was completely dark, and no one would be able to see anything from outside. I crawled around the floor to the window, and peeked through from the very edge of the blinds on the right. There was a man crouched outside my door, trying to look through into my bedroom. I realized later that I should have made it obvious I knew he was there by yelling something at him, but at the time I was frozen solid in fear. I had absolutely no idea what to do. After a couple of minutes, he realized that he couldn't see anything with the lights off, had the nerve to tut, and then crept away. I debated calling the police, but decided I didn't really have any information for them, so it would have been a waste of all their time. Needless to say, I didn't get much sleep that night, and I have no idea how long he had been watching me. I spoke to my landlord afterwards, and he's had a concrete wall put up between the garden and the alley, but the other fence with the gaps in belongings to the neighbors, whose landlord is in America, and apparently impossible to get a hold of. So currently, there's still nothing securing our garden from next doors and the lane. 2 nights ago, my boyfriend and I were in the room, sitting on my bed and watching Netflix. Since the first time it happened, I've been massively paranoid and had nightmares about it happening again. So at first, I thought I might be imagining it. However, this time, I distinctly saw the upper right part of a face peering through the gap at us. He was wearing dark frame glasses. Immediately, I froze and whispered to my boyfriend that I could see someone, and I definitely wasn't imagining it. And don't fucking move until we figure out how to react. He insisted that we leave the room, and I went upstairs to the landing window and saw someone walking off down the lane, but no one else in sight. Whether or not it was the same person, I am not sure. I was quite upset that it happened again, but thought the likeness of him coming back twice in one night was rare. I decided to talk to my landlord in the morning. We managed to hang a coat up over the gap in the blinds, so you couldn't see through into my room at all, even with the lights on. My boyfriend had work in the morning, so he left around 11 p.m., literally within 5 minutes of him leaving. I was standing in my room facing away from the back door, and deciding whether to watch more Netflix or go to bed. I heard some faint scuffling sounds and 2 clicks, but tried to convince myself that it was all in my head. It occurred to me a few minutes later that The clicking sound was the noise the door handle makes when someone tries to open it and it's locked. As this was dawning on me, and I was about to react, whoever was out there tried to pull my window open. It's important to note, it is a tiny window. Even I couldn't fit through it, and it's at the top, so around 5 feet from the ground. It doesn't close all the way as the latch is broken, but I have a dream catcher with wind chimes hanging off the side, in the inside handle. So as they pulled it open, the wind chimes started rattling against the window. I was terrified at this point. I'm very small and have no idea how to defend myself, and someone was actually attempting to enter my house through my bedroom. I have no idea how I summoned the courage to do it, but I whipped the blinds open and made a big deal out of slamming the window shut, then peered outside. I couldn't see anyone, so they must have run off. Straight away, I called my boyfriend, who had just gotten home, who then came back and insisted I stay at his for the night. When I spoke to my landlord the next morning, he said he was going to get motion sensor intruder lights installed, but couldn't fix the fence, as it was the neighbor's landlord's property. I was still pretty freaked out, but I thought that the wind chimes rattling must have made it clear that trying to get in wouldn't go unnoticed, and the gaps had been covered, so there wouldn't be any point in returning again. Last night, we made a thick covering off over the blinds with a bunch of jackets and coats, so there was absolutely no way anyone could see inside. I triple-checked the door was locked, took the key out, and attempted to wedge the window closed. Feeling safer, we smoked a joint each, and my boyfriend dozed off a while later. Probably around midnight or a bit later, I got up and turned the lights off, and put the light on my phone to make my way back to bed. Feeling really paranoid still, I decided to just peek through the blinds quickly to confirm that there was no one there. The lights on my phone made it slightly more difficult to see, but I saw someone wearing a hoodie hunched outside. My hands were shaking, and the side of my blind balancing on the coat in the middle slipped a bit and rattled. I instantly let go, turned the light off on my phone, and a few moments later, I saw a weak light coming from the other side. Turn off! I might have sat on the floor, not moving and listening intently for about 10 minutes before I dared crawl back to bed. I woke my boyfriend, but didn't explain what had happened properly, so he assured me that I couldn't have seen anything, and I was probably just really fucking baked. I spent most of the night staring at the blinds. I would have thought the wind chimes could have put anyone off, but for them to come back the next night was really what made me uncertain about what to do. I was thinking tonight I might try to set something up to see if anyone comes back, like tying some string a few inches from the ground across the entrance of the patio, as I'd be able to hear if anyone tripped over it. I also thought I might stay somewhere else and set my laptop webcam up to record the window all night, with the screen turned off. I still haven't called the police, as I still don't have much information, and feel like I would be wasting their time. I don't know what to do in order to feel safe in my home anymore. Edit. I didn't update before. I wasn't aware so many people were invested in hearing what happened. The past 2 nights, I hung an enormous bedsheet across the entire wall with a door and window, so there was absolutely no way anyone would be able to see in. I removed the key from the door and wedged the window shut. The first night my boyfriend stayed with me, and I nearly peeped out a few times during the night, but stopped myself, because I knew it would only make me more nervous. The last night I was here alone, but haven't heard anything specific at all either nights. My landlord literally just came around about 20 minutes ago. He's bought a massive motion sensor intruder light that's going to go on the wall directly above my door and window. And he's going to contribute some money to next door's landlord to get a concrete wall put up to replace the broken fence. He is a really good landlord. He's very concerned about everything that's been happening so far. He's also going to try and find a key for the broken window to see if it's just locked in that position or if it needs replacing at all. I'm feeling much better knowing that things are going to be sorted to prevent this from happening again. And since it's such a good place to live, despite what happened, I'm going to stay here. Though when my lease finishes, I'm going to move into one of the rooms upstairs. Thank you so much to everyone that read and contributed. It was all fantastic advice and made me feel much, much better knowing that I wasn't overreacting by being scared. I'm going to go to my neighbors and let them know what happened so they can be safe too. And if anything ever happens again, I will be immediately calling the police.